Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview as the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2-0 in meaningless preseason games, are getting ready to play the 0-1 in meaningless preseason games. Detroit Lions at Heinz Field this Saturday. National television, NFL Network. Who's excited? Bryan Anthony Davis, I'm sure he's excited. What's up, Bryan?
I am pumped. This is a game that we've been counting to since 1959 when Bobby Lane was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers from the Detroit Lions, and he put the curse on the Lions, saying that they'll never win again. Hey, they haven't won a championship since.
Is that a Rosie Nix jersey?
No, it's my new Joe Schobert jersey.
No, you didn't.
I did. Number 45. I was
Turn
all
around.
excited.
I want proof. Turn around.
I was all excited because
No. Turn around. I want to see the nameplate.
No, I can't because
it's because it's not Joe Schobert.
No, it's Joe Schobert. I went out and got Joe Schobert because I know he's gonna keep the number, right?
He's not. He even said on Twitter it's temporary. And then I retweeted that and said, "Don't buy your Joe Schobert jersey." And everyone thought that I was meaning that he's going to be like cut or not make the team. I was like, no, he's just saying he's going to change his number once cuts are made. Anyway,
well, yeah, good thing it's a Rosie Nix jersey. But I mean...
Who else would have known it? Anyways, Dave Schofield's probably excited. More data for Dave on Saturday. What's up, Dave?
Yeah, got to get that data. Got to love it. Churning out those numbers.
Do you say data or data?
It's data.
No, you said that very definitively. I'm pretty sure some people say data.
Oh, no. Well, you ask what I say. That's not what you said.
Yeah,
what
right.
You could have said
data. You could have said I say data. You said it is data. Like this is how it is.
No, for me, it's data.
You say data.
Well, Bryan knows why, because that is how it was properly pronunciated on one Star Trek: The Next Generation with the android by the name of Data.
Sure. Well, I'll take your word for it. Okay, so let's get things started. I want to talk about something that's not necessarily Steelers related right now, and this is just because it's kind of a hot topic on Twitter, and that is training camp fights. Yeah, we chuckle because we know we're going to be talking about Mr. Big Chest, aka Ronald Ocean, aka AB. Antonio Brown was mixing it up down in Tampa with the Tennessee Titans. I'm not sure even who the cornerback was. A great shot of
Does
him
it matter?
There was a great shot of AB though connecting with a left jab or hook, like square to the face. But nonetheless, guys, this is not the only fight that's taken place. I know that John Gruden pulled the Raiders off the field, took them to the buses, and was like, "We're not doing this." I guess it was with the Rams. Maybe they got into some fisticuffs. Gentlemen, let's just talk about joint practice fights, because that seems to happen a lot. And it even happened with the Pittsburgh a few years ago. I remember when the Buffalo Bills came to St. Vincent College, they had some scuffles there. The Detroit Lions had come to not Heinz Field, I'm sorry, to St. Vincent before. A similar story. Bryan, what's your take on these camp fights? Okay, or come on, guys, know your professionalism. We'll put it that way.
For me, it's know your professionalism. Man, it's happening all over. And when you said joint practice fights, Randy Gregory of the Cowboys got excited because he was like, "What?" I mean, that was awesome. I mean, it was like, yes.
He's not the only one that would be saying that, by the way.
I thought you'd go Martavis Bryant. I really did.
Oh,
somewhere Josh Gordon's going.
Josh Gordon, say something? Wait, come on, get my name out there.
Squirrel.
Yeah, man, it's happening like crazy though. Even the fights in the stands. There's been a couple stands fights that have been absolutely incredible.
Well, yeah, that was Rams and Chargers.
Rams and Chargers.
I saw you put that on the Slack channel.
And Seahawks and Raiders came too. There was so it was absolutely crazy. I don't know what's going out west, but it's really funny. I have a cousin, and she married a guy that was a Raiders fan. And back in the 80s, I mean, I talked to him in the 90s, and he was telling me about, being a Raiders fan. It was the LA Raiders at the time. And he would actually say, so this scar right here, this is Broncos 87.
Oh my God.
This one's Seahawks 88. I mean, it's just like some of those places you go, you expect a fight.
And so you think a joint camp practice is one of those places?
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't. You should not in a joint camp practice. It's kind of a goodwill thing to be practicing together, because this is one of those things that, you know, the two teams are coming together to share a practice field, to play, to get ready together. They don't need this going on. And, you know, if you get hot under the collar or something happens, pushing and shoving is one thing. You know, a push, just say, hey, you know, and somebody jumping in. But fisticuffs, that's a different thing. And, you know, you also got to be smart if you're the player. I mean, Antonio Brown, I mean, when your hands are your livelihood and you're throwing a shot, I mean, you throw that shot. How many people throw a punch and throw it wrong enough that they mess up their hands? Oh, come on, think.
Mr. Big Chest.
Yeah, Ronnie Ocean, you know, thumbs down.
Dave, what about you? You were a player, you were a coach. I'm sure you've dealt with your share of dust-ups, as we used to call it. What do you think about this situation?
All right. Well, first of all, when it comes to, let's say, a joint practice, I've never been to Latrobe to see a Steelers training camp practice or Heinz Field this year, but I have seen the Steelers participate in joint practices before at Frostburg State University when they used to travel down there to take on the then Washington Redskins. And I don't ever remember seeing anybody, there might have been some jawing at each other, but there was really no throwdown. But it's kind of interesting that you say this, and then we wonder why the NFL is cracking down on the taunting. It's funny. They want to crack down on the taunting because they're honestly, truthfully, I believe it's because of the retaliation factor of then when you go out, are you taking a shot at someone on the field and blah, 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 and what it could lead to. I mean, we complain that they're going to start calling that, which is funny because I listened to your Let's Ride from Wednesday and about what happened in the Colts Panthers game. I do believe is who they were playing.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yes.
And I'm like, you do realize that is not allowed on any level of football until you get to NFL. Any level of football that gets flagged. And now that they're saying they're going to call it in the NFL.
Wait, even that play.
Yes, that play in college.
He didn't even stand over the guy. He literally just turned and looked at him.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really watch it. I mean, I just saw I saw the slow motion of it. That's all I saw was a slow motion replay.
Well, that makes everything
so I didn't
worse.
see it in regular time.
Well, wait. Does that mean that Seattle had 2 losses in Dave's head?
So my thing is any kind of taunting, anything aimed at a player isn't allowed anywhere until you get the NFL. And now people are going to be upset that the NFL is going to crack down on them more. And we know how this works with that. They say they're going to crack down more. They crack down huge in the preseason. And then what happens? It kind of just goes away during the regular season because people get it in their mind a little bit better. But when you talk about just being heated and stuff, I didn't really have to separate many fights or anything in my coaching days because most of these guys were teammates. You know what I'm saying? So I do understand when you bring in somebody else in a scrimmage or other setting like that. But we never really did any of those that didn't have officials. So it kind of felt like a real game and things like that. But emotions run high in a contact sports. I even say it like for example, in my adult life, meaning post-college, I have the 2 sports that I have played more than anything was softball and basketball. Emotions run much higher in basketball because you actually have some physicality with it. And Jeff's laughing because he thinks it runs high in softball.
You're not on my team.
You haven't seen the basketball games. That's what I'm saying. Because when you up the physicality in the sport itself, that's just kind of how it's going to be because adrenaline kicks in and all that stuff. It's fun to see, but bottom line is you don't want to see one of your own guys or somebody do something stupid and get hurt. Where was that? Was it Geno Smith or somebody like that? Didn't someone get punched in the face in the locker room a few years ago?
Yep. And
broke a jaw and the other guy got cut on the spot. You know what I'm saying? So, and that was even on your own team.
Yeah.
It's football. Things like that are going to happen, but
yeah, for sure. So, okay, I just wanted to bring that up. It was kind of a hot topic. Figured I'd ask your all's take on that. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a lot of news has been happening, mainly with the starters. I'm going to ask you real quick, Brian, roll out the bat. How much do you think Ben Roethlisberger plays on Saturday night? We know he's going to play. Ben said he wants to play as much as he's allowed to. Brian, what's your guess?
I'm predicting no more than 3 quarters. Excuse me, 3.
I was like, good Lord, he's never played 3 quarters.
All right, let me try that again. Snip, snip. Hey, that's the best part about being the podcast producer. That could go away. Just like that. No, I'm thinking no more than 3 series.
Okay. So no more than 3. Okay, what about you, Dave?
I kind of talked about this with my brother some on Tuesday. I'm going 12 to 18 snaps because it depends on how long the series are, on how many he gets. If they have a really long series in there, I mean, my goodness, if it's a 15-play scoring drive, they might just say, and it takes up half the quarter, they might say, you're good. If it's a 3 and out, that a 1 first down and a stall or something like that, or a fumble by a running back or a receiver, which unfortunately we've seen those before, then you're going to see more. So I don't want to just narrow it down to drives. I think they're going to want to see at least that many plays.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin did say it depends on what happens in the stadium. In other words, if it's a nice scoring drive, they might just pull him after that. But guys, how important is it for Roethlisberger to play in this game? And if so, how much? I mean, we talked about predictions, but when it comes to are you actually needing him to play on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being he doesn't need to play at all, shouldn't be playing, risk isn't worth the reward, and 10, it is imperative that he plays, new system, etc. Brian, where do you fall on that scale?
17.
Oh,
it's
geez.
Imperative that he plays.
Really?
Yeah, we've seen the rust factor. I've talked about this for years. I get the risk. I know everything you're risking, but it seems the last 5 or 6 years since, and Dave said it the other day, it was like 2015, the last time that he played more than one preseason game. You see that rust factor in the first couple games with Ben, and I think he needs a couple of preseason games to not be rusty.
Where do you fall on that scale, Dave?
I want to give you a nice Dave answer because that's what you've known to expect.
Here we go.
I thought because I'll give you an answer, but I gotta set it up first. That's the Dave answer. You got to set it up. I thought by the way the Steelers had been playing everything else out, that they were basically treating this like a regular 4-game preseason that they would have done 2 years ago, because they had 4 games. Based on Coach Tomlin's comments today, I don't think that's the case, because he kind of hinted at they're treating this like game 2, and in a normal circumstance, Ben Roethlisberger would not play in this game. But because it's a new system, Coach Canada, they thought it was important. To me, he's almost hinting at playing him again the next week. So my thing is, I think between the 2 games, you've already said it well. And if you guys don't, I'm sorry. If you're listening here on YouTube or Facebook or just stumbled on this audio podcast somewhere, if you are not part of the Ride or Die crew, you are really missing out. You've got to make sure you're catching all of these podcasts. But you already said it, Jeff. You think it's more important for him to play in the next game.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to petition to, and I think he might win because you're still got tons of time until that first week. I mean, was it Mark Cabali that brought it up that if this is the only game Ben plays and you think it's going to shake off the rust, he's got too much time off until week 1. So yeah. I think how important is it for him to play this game? I'm not like Brian. I'd put it like a 7.5. Assuming he's going to play in the next game. If he's not playing in the next game, then it's Brian 17. You know what I mean? Okay.
Well, no, and that makes a lot of sense. And I agree. I would probably say it's about a 7. I think it's a good number. I don't think it's imperative. I think he would be able to go out and perform with practice repetitions only, but still you want to get those live reps. Let's switch gears from Roethlisberger. I mean, he's the most important player on the offensive side of the football. We know that, but let's talk about the offensive line. And until about a week ago, those 5 players on the offensive line had never even practiced together. And we're talking about from left to right, Okorafor, Dotson, Green, Turner, and Banner. They're all going to play. How long do you think they will play? Number 1, and number 2, how long should they play? Brian, we'll start with you.
I'm thinking a midway through the second half. Some of them start second quarter. Man, I'm killing.
You are just, geez.
Wow.
Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know what? He should make his debut this week. Deontay Johnson needs to be on the field.
Preseason debut.
They're enough messing around.
You guys, I love you. They midway through the second quarter, I guess some of these guys are going to be coming out. I would like to see them get a half together, a full half.
Okay, what about you, Dave, with the offensive line?
Well, as bad as Bryan screwed up the beginning part of that answer, he is exactly right. I want to see them at least halfway through the second quarter, and if they go all the way to halftime, that's even better. I do like the one thing that Coach Tomlin said today in his press conference when he was asked if Ben Roethlisberger, if he might be out there a little bit longer in order to keep him with the starting offensive line to see how they are together, and Coach Tomlin said about Ben, he's not required for that to happen.
Yeah.
So that right there kind of tells us that we're going to see the starting offensive line perhaps longer than we see Ben Roethlisberger, which is good. But they might make they might make like one sub. I wouldn't be shocked to see Dan Moore Jr. come in for Zach Banner before everybody else goes out.
So speaking of the offensive line, I'm getting ready to run I like to update the camp battles or the position battles going into a preseason game. That's going to run on Friday at behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. I just want to run this by you. So this week, it kind of like flew under the radar because that's what Mike Tomlin wanted to do. The Kendrick Green is going to start at center. We all knew it, but it was never announced, the depth chart and all this. That's not the question. The question is, who do you think wins the backup spot? BJ Finney, I believe, has played 0 snaps at center. I don't think he's even played at center. If he has, I haven't seen it. No. JC Hassenauer has improved. Guys, who's going to be the backup? We know they like position versatility. What are they going to do at backup center? That's what I'm curious about. Bryan, what do you think?
Well, my vote is for Fernando Velasco, but since that's not possible, I'm looking at, look, it's going to be Hassenauer. Because if BJ Finney is competing for a job, he's competing for a job at guard is what it seems like. So I would probably think that JC gets the job there, and they say they like what he's been doing. So Finney might be one of those guys competing for that guard spot. And there is going to be a veteran on that offensive line that is cut.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Dave, what do you think about the backup? Is it Hassenauer? Can Hassenauer really play guard though?
Can he? We saw it last year. It wasn't pretty, but at the same time, it wasn't all that pretty when he was playing center, but he's looked much better this year. Like I say, could it be that he's not going up against this tough a competition? Maybe, but I don't want to just say that because he's done a nice job. I will say this, that BJ Finney in the Hall of Fame game played all of his snaps at left guard, and in week 1 of the preseason played all his snaps at right guard. I just looked that up here. So I think Hassenauer, I don't know that Finney's in the plan at center, and maybe the Steelers realize what a lot of us have noticed is that BJ Finney is just a better guard than he is a center. And he's doing a really nice job this preseason, which I was the first one's like, I'm a little bit leery about him coming back after no offensive snaps last year. And he has done a fantastic job so far. But man, that's going to make it tough to see if they can keep this down to 9 offensive linemen.
That's what
they
I
might
was
have
just
to just
trying
go
to
to 10.
Who's the odd man out then?
I don't know. I mean, I know you originally thought maybe it was Rashad Coward, but he's been the starter in place of Dotson the whole time. I don't know that he would then not make the team. Maybe somebody gets traded. I don't know. But not only that, I mean, Chaz Green, I thought, has looked well. Some people said, Joe Hagg's they all got. No, he's done a nice job. Joe Hagg, through 1 week of the preseason, now it's 2 games for the Steelers, is the number 1 pass blocking offensive lineman through the preseason of 2021. Did I say pass blocking? It was run blocking. I screwed that up. Yeah. I pulled a Bryan. So I think Hassenauer is your backup. And this is coming from a guy that had him not making the 53 for the longest time.
It's going to be interesting. For sure, it's going to be interesting. I do want to talk about the defensive side of the ball and pick your guys' brain about some starters there. This is exciting because this is the first time that we have starters, a significant number of starters that have not played yet actually get in the action. Now, I did listen to Mike Tomlin's press conference, and he was asked about players like Minkah Fitzpatrick, and he gave the stock, well, we're going to leave the door open for them to come, blah, blah, blah. Guys, out of players that haven't played yet, we're talking Joe Hayden, we're talking Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, Tyson Alualu. Do you see any way, barring injury, that any of those guys don't play on Saturday night, Brian?
I was going to abstain from this question because of last week.
I listed them for you.
Since you listed them, I'm going to go ahead and say I actually think that they all play. Okay. So that's I was going to continue. I just had a pause to get my breath there, Jefferson Hartman. But so, yeah, they're probably going to play. I mean, this is week 3. Now, I know the NFL is calling it week 2, but for the Steelers, it is week 3. I understand what Dave was saying about them treating it like a week 2 game, but does that mean they're going to treat the Carolina game like a week 3 game? That's where I don't understand, and I'm not sure about that, because whatever's going on in Coach T's head might be completely different than what we know. But I would think that this is the game. If this was traditionally a four preseason game season.
We're not laughing at you. We're laughing with you.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I'm laughing. I didn't realize that. Cool. Oh, yeah.
Well, no, what you don't realize is you also froze a little bit at a very, very appropriate time in there, which was funny. So.
That's great. Now, I just think if this was a normal preseason, I think everybody would have it off, and we would see the guys like we saw a couple years ago, Duck Hodges, J. Rowan Elliott. We see those guys, Johnny Holton on game 4. So I kind of expect to see that kind of thing once again in game 4 this year, because there are 4 games. That's why you're going to see the Haywards and the Minkahs and the Haydens and Alualus. Alualu. Dave, correct me on that.
I always said Alualu, and then I was corrected to Alualu. So I don't know. No clue. Dave, what do you think about the defensive starters that are getting their first preseason action this Saturday night?
This is just defense, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think all the players is pretty much on the table except for Tuitt and Watt. Yep. I think you see everybody unless there's any kind of injury going on. And I don't know that, even Antoine Brooks was working his way back. There's a lot of other people.
He didn't practice today. Antoine Brooks did.
He was out there doing stuff. He just didn't have a helmet. Yeah. So it looks like he's trying to work his way back. At first they said he was back, and then they're like, no, his helmet's not there. But they weren't in pads. Right. So that was part of the thing. So he might be someone else who, if he's good to go, but we still have a few days until the game. And he's not someone that they're going to be like, oh, we should hold him out since he didn't practice, because they need to see what he's got. So I think you pretty much got the 2 guys that you're not going to see, and otherwise everybody's eligible.
If there was one player on the defensive side that is eligible to play, so that this obviously excludes Watt and Tuitt, that I'm like, hey, I don't want him to even see the field because he doesn't need to, and I don't dare risk this guy getting injured, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick for me. If there was someone put him in bubble wrap and say, stay off the field until week 1, would you say that for you all, out of the guys that could be returning, he's the most important? I just look at the safety depth and I'm like, good Lord, if they lose Minkah, they are in trouble. Brian, what do you think?
Absolutely. Minkah is the guy that he's one of the quarterbacks on that defense.
Yeah. Dave, you agree? Disagree?
It's Minkah, it's Joe Hayden, then it's everybody else.
Right, because they're so deep at defensive line. So, yeah, okay.
You would say somebody like maybe a Devin Bush, but he's got to work his way back, coming back from the injury.
All right, let's talk a little bit about special teams before we take our first break. Now, let's talk about punter, because there is no special teams talk anymore with kicking, because Sam Sloman was released when they went from 90 to 85. If you're Mike Tomlin, how do you handle punting duties in this game? I don't feel like doing half and half is going to work, considering Presley Harvin didn't get to punt the ball last week in Philadelphia when they did that. So, Brian, if you're Tomlin and Danny Smith chewing 25,000 pieces of gum in your mouth during the game, How do you divvy up the punting duties between Big Press and Weasel Boy Jordan Berry?
I don't think they change anything. They will probably just look at that as something that happened. Just, hey, we didn't get to see Press Harvin. Maybe they start Press Harvin again and do that same thing. I really can't see them alternating quarter 1 and quarter 3, or quarter 2 and quarter 3 and 1 and 4. I can't really see them doing that. So I would actually think that Big Press gets the start, and because they saw a lot of Jordan Berry last week, and they're probably, if we've got to see one this week, they're probably thinking it's going to see Presley Harvin to see if he has the momentum going, since he didn't get the opportunity last week. I just don't think I don't see them deviating from the script, because they very rarely do that.
Okay, Dave, what are your thoughts about the punting battle?
Yeah, well, although I like what you proposed on Let's Ride, of just every other punt, just
that's what I'm saying. Just let them kick. You go, then you go.
You could do it by quarter, if you know what I mean, and say, okay, you got the first quarter, you got the second quarter, and then if somebody gets no punts in there, they get the third quarter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then you decide at halftime who's going to get the next quarter. It might be that, oh, well, if Big Press starts off in the first quarter and they punt twice, then Barry's in the second quarter, they don't punt at all, then Barry's going to get the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then if they don't punt again, then he's obviously going to get the next punt. Or, like, I would prefer, let's not even see these guys punt to these preseason games. Let's just, put together a scoring drive every time. I'd much rather prefer that.
And they would just be doing the holding.
Yes, let them hold.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get this super chat up here. Alexander Pert, I think is how you say it. Is that a pound sign?
Pound it, baby.
Yes, 449 poundage. He said, "Hey fellas, love you as always. Been watching for years and always appreciate your energy. Here's some money for a new internet connection, Brian." Mine's just as bad as Brian's. Mine cuts out all the time. That's why Dave always says, "And we're back." Like, people were like, "Okay, enough, and we're back." Stuff. It's because like my screen will freeze for literally 2 seconds and then it comes back on. But anyways, nonetheless, there you go. So we've talked about offense, defense, and special teams. When we come back after this break, we're going to be talking about some scenarios. I have some tough questions for these guys to answer. We're going to be doing some over under, and we're also going to have some trivia. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. If you're listening on audio, head over to part 2. Be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joined as always with Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer, and editor Dave Schofield. And we already talked about who we think is going to start, how much they're going to start, the impact they're going to have, all that good stuff. So if you missed that, if you're listening on audio and you just happen to click on part 2 on accident, go back to part 1, check out the first part. We have a super chat here. Sean Manahan gave us $2. Says quarterback kneel 3 straight times to see press punt. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, who needs to see Josh Dobbs? Just let Presley Harvin punt the ball. Can they punt on first down? Sure, let's do it. Instead of victory formation, just let Presley Harvin punt the ball. I want to see what he can do. Anyways, thank you, Sean, for the tip, by the way. I have some questions for you all. Now, these are questions that I ran by Mr. Captain Blue Checkmark. And if you know who that is, you listen to my Ride or Die crew, and he joins me every Friday. That's Mr. Michael Beck. He is the only verified member of the BTSC staff, and boy, does he wear that like a badge of honor. I mean, he is verified on Twitter. Gosh darn it, watch out. Okay, so I asked him these questions on my Let's Ride podcast I recorded for Friday morning. I want to ask you all the same thing. Okay, for the regular season, this is not preseason, this is regular season. We'll start with Brian. Who is more important to the Steelers, Chase Claypool or Najee Harris? Brian, go ahead.
Najee Harris.
Okay, explain yourself.
And it's got to be the reason why that you have nothing else to fall back on. You have, you have the other guys there. I mean, we like what we see from Kalen Ballage. We could see Ant Mac, but he's not going to bring what Najee Harris does. When Chase Claypool's on the field, he might be a member of a quartet. There might be 3 other guys on the field, including maybe 1 or 2 tight ends, other guys that could catch the football. There's sometimes that he's going to be a decoy. There's going to be some guys times that that the balls are going to be going to Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington. Ray might get a few too. But what I'm saying is you can make up for the loss of a receiver. It's still a huge loss if you lose Chase Claypool. But Najee Harris, there's a big drop-off from Najee to Benny Snell, to Anthony McFarland, to anybody else.
Okay, Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, just you said regular season, right?
Correct.
Just
Yes, not preseason,
okay, so
regular season. Yes.
The answer is Najee Harris for two reasons. One, value above replacement, and two, touches per game. If Chase Claypool gets 10 receptions, that's insane. If Najee Harris only gets 10 carries, we're like, why didn't he get the ball more? So go with the player that has more touch, which is funny because we don't pay running backs like they pay wide receivers. But at the same time, right now with this Steelers team this year, that's why I would go with that answer. But I'd prefer to not ever miss either one of them.
Correct. Yeah. Now, when I asked Mr. Captain Blue Checkmark this question, I asked him, I said, maybe it's because in my mind, I'm expecting Chase Claypool to enter almost like superstardom status here this season. Like I really do have huge expectations for number 11 for the Steelers. And I think that when you have a player that, and let's be honest, I think he's the closest thing the Steelers have to a true bona fide number 1 wide receiver. You all agree?
Yes.
Okay. So that's why I agree with you all. Najee is more important. And that's what Michael said as well. But let's go to the next one. So the offensive line, we all know the projected starting offensive line. That's not the question. If everyone stays healthy, the question is it the same offensive line that finishes the regular season? Again, if everyone stays healthy. Brian, what do you think? Do you understand?
No.
Okay.
I think I actually think you're going to see one of them replaced. And
here's your guess. That's what I want to know.
I'm a little worried about Trey Turner. So I just don't look. I haven't seen enough of the guy. I'm not going to listen to anybody that says after 2 practices that he doesn't look good. That was a whole bunch of malarkey, and I'm not talking about Mike. I'm just saying that's give a guy a little bit of time. I just don't know what the whole season's going to bring. I mean, the second guy I would probably think could be Chooks. They're loving it's a battle with Dan Moore Jr. I think Chooks wins that. But, there could be something like that. If something crazy happened where you were starting J.C. Hassenauer, Kendrick Green would definitely be the guy. But it looks like Kendrick Green's going to be the one that starts now. It looks like they're going to give him the nod. But I just have a feeling that this is not the kind of line that we've been accustomed to with Villanueva, with Ramon Foster, with Marquise Pouncey, with I was going to say Alan Faneca, with David DeCastro. With those guys, you knew they were constants. And if you asked the question with those guys on the line, you'd be saying, no, they're not getting replaced. These guys will be there until they're injured. But this is a different line, that there's so many question marks, and question marks have the potential to let you down.
Okay. So Dave, the question again is the starting projected offensive lines. This is assuming that it's the 5 that we talked about earlier in the show. Will that be, barring injury, no one gets hurt, will that be the same offensive line they finish the regular season with? What do you think?
That barring injury is the thing, because frankly, I think if the Steelers are going to change anything up, it would be more because of that.
Well, I know that.
I know because the problem is, even look at what they did last year when they still didn't play Kevin Dotson in the playoff game because they were how they were with the guys that they wanted as their starting line. That's the biggest reason that I would say that perhaps they don't. But the reason if they possibly would, I don't know that it's as much as guys not getting it done as it is. I'm right now granted it's the preseason, but I'm really excited about some of these other guys on the offensive line. Like I said, and a lot of people said in the live chat, are they going to get to a point where they're going to have to treat Dan Moore Jr. like they should have treated Kevin Dotson last year? I would like to say, that you can't keep that guy off the field. The problem is, even as good as Kevin Dotson was last year, they still wouldn't start him if they didn't have to. And that's the only thing that's holding me back. But I could see someone like a Dan Moore Jr. being ready to go. I could even see BJ Finney being a good option at guard if things aren't working out with Mr. Turner, as Brian says. I'm still hoping that we can get the magic back with him eventually, and it'll take some time. And Jeff, I have to say one more thing, because there's someone that's really upset about this in the live chat. It's my new hat. They want to know what my new hat
please
is.
Answer this question. My gosh.
Okay. I'll lead in to let you see again. What it is, it's a black on black Steelers logo where only the top hypocycloid is gold.
I wish all of them were gold. It would look a lot cooler if all three of them were.
I already have a black hat that has I have a black hat that has the gold with the black hypocycloids. It's sitting right over there. But this was just different and unique, and I'm like, I'll go with that one. I thought it would go good with my color rush. So
there you go.
There you go.
Nice new hat. I actually think this is going to be, barring injury, the same starting offensive line for the reason that Dave said. They're not going to throw Dan Moore in there. They're going to pull a Dotson with him. I still do believe that. That. All right, last question here from me. 2 questions. It's a 2-parter. Who is the week 1 starting outside cornerback opposite Joe Hayden? Brian, we'll start with you.
James Pierre. I think they're moving in that direction. I think they're liking Cam Sutton more as a nickelback. So I think it's as simple as that.
Not going to disagree, Dave.
Okay, I'm going to say, can I go ahead and answer it? Because you say it's a 2-part question. I don't know if you're going to then ask him the second part. I was going to
get you your part 1 first.
Okay, because I'm going to guess what the second part is too. And that's how I'm going to answer it. I'm going to say, I think that week 1, it's going to be Cam Sutton. But if we kind of go off the last question, if your follow-up is going to be, will it be the same player by the end of the season? I'm going to say no.
Okay, I was
going to follow up.
It was close. It was going to be who's the starting cornerback opposite Joe Hayden at the bye week.
Oh, the bye week. Okay, I'm even there. Ooh.
Which is week 8. Coming off of the bye week is week 8. It's a week 7 bye.
Oh, after the bye week, I'm going to say it might be someone. It might be different.
Okay, so Brian, let's go to part 2 now. Who do you think? If you said that Pierre is that starting at week 1, is he still that guy after the bye week?
I'm getting such a Willie Williams vibe out of James Pierre right now, where he was not.
Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing?
Well, no,
because Willie Williams wasn't bad. Like, I feel like when you say that, I don't know. It's sometimes I guess I felt like, oh, dude, is that bad?
No, I think that's a great thing, because look what he did in that 1995 season.
Oh yeah,
he was starting opposite Rod Woodson. A lot of people don't realize that he started the season at corner, and everybody's like, who is this? And why is he in there? And I believe he had 7 interceptions that season, if I'm not mistaken. He just, he really played well. And I just have a feeling James Pierre, and I keep on wanting to call him Juan Pierre because I remember the outfielder for the Marlins and all those years. But James Pierre was kept on the 53-man roster last year, and nobody got to see him in preseason, and they did not dare put this guy on the practice squad because they knew, boop, snapped up, just like that. Just like Deontay Spencer. That's still bugging me. But anyways, James Pierre is a guy that they looked at last year as a guy having a future on this team, and I think the future is starting now with James Pierre. They know what they have in Cam Sutton. They could go ahead and look at him on the corner, but it seems like as practice and training camp has grown into like number 18, number 19, somewhere around there, it's starting to shake out more with who they want to go with. Now you're not experimenting as much, so that's why I think it's going to be James Pierre there, and the guys that you're seeing now are probably the guys that they're looking at as for reals.
Okay.
Can I comment on Brian's?
Sure.
If I'd have gone with Brian's answer of James Pierre, then I would have said no, it wouldn't change after the bye week. But because I went with Cam Sutton, that's why I would say yes. And I'm not saying that it's a problem with Cam Sutton as much as it might be. He might be the only guy. I mean, it seems like they're trying to throw an awful lot of stuff at that slot corner right now. They're even talking about using different players based on game scenarios, like a first down slot if they need one versus a third down guy, things like that. And because of that, I think you're going to see James Pierre on the field on the outside for when they need to put Sutton on the inside, but it might be that they need Sutton inside more by that time. But it's all speculation right now. I just want to see them all playing well, regardless who's out there.
My boy Lustin Jane has been playing well. He's been getting a lot of chatter, and he obviously had the interception in the Philadelphia game. He had another pick in training camp practice. I'm not saying, hey, people that thought the Lane was getting cut, he's not going anywhere. Just so you know that. He's not going anywhere. All right, final question here. So we know that the Steelers created some salary cap space by restructuring Stephon Tuitt's contract. We know that Joe Schobert, I almost called him Sherbert. Orange Rainbow Sherbet was always my favorite as a kid.
I'm a big Sherbet fan.
Yeah, Rainbow was the best. Anyways, when you restructure his deal, they kind of redo it. Dave, just give us a ballpark real quick, if you know off the top of your head. Ballpark, how much space they have remaining.
I have it calculated as 18.1, but there's a lot of things out there that are so sketchy that you have to just go off reports. Okay. Like, I still can't figure out if Trey Turner's deal has void years or not. It's crazy. So I would say safely 17, but it could be as much as 18.1.
Okay. So 17 mil in the bank. Now, like someone like Michael Beck, and I always joke because he's like, they've got money. It's like it's burning a hole in their pocket. Yeah. He wants them to spend it right now. That's not the question. The question is, what do you think, if you're predicting, what's the next move the Steelers make, if any at all? Brian, what do you think?
I think it's Watt. I really think that they need to get that going. I feel like it's progressing towards that. We keep on saying that progress is being made. I don't think they want this to extend much longer, so I think they're going to make a concerted effort to get that done now as the very next move. I don't think that we're going to get the Captain Blue checkmark blue light special and go ahead and trade for Stephon Gilmore, trade for Patrick Mahomes, and trade for God. So with that being said,
it's a very Michael Beck thing, though.
And Michael Beck, and I love him. I love the guy.
I love the guy.
But he's going to fit everybody under the salary cap. In that, I mean, yeah, he has everybody penciled in. I would love to see his Madden team. You know, I mean, I would like to see everybody on his team with Steelers. I'm sure you've got Patrick Mahomes there. You've got Michael Thomas. You got like all these great everybody. They're probably loaded and they go 19-0. That might be a Matty Peverell thing too. I think he does that with Madden too. But no, I mean, the next move's got to be TJ.
I'd like to see Michael Beck's fantasy football proposed trades. I will trade you Jalen Samuels for Patrick Mahomes, straight up. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a good deal.
I'm sure he's been kicked out of a number of leagues.
All right, enough with Michael. Dave, what do you think the next Steelers move is, Dave?
It's TJ Watt. I know some people are like, well, Minka. Minka's not this year because they have him for 2 more years. It's not a very Steelers move to do the 5th-year option and then do the deal now. They're more likely to do that next year. It could,
unless it would save you a crap ton of money.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to save them a crap ton of money to do it this year because he's on the last year of his regular rookie deal. Next year, it might save him some money. I'm almost wondering if they're freeing up this money because maybe Watt's camp is wanting him to still have his $10 million base this year on top of the signing bonus. That could be, that comes with the new deal. Because if not, where generally the Steelers have, league minimum, which for TJ would be $990K, and then everything else is his enormous signing bonus, then therefore I would think that you could get this done and you wouldn't actually crush the cap, because like I've reported before, if he has a minimum base salary, they could give him a signing bonus of $45 million, and it still would not make his salary cap number go up for this year. But maybe it's more than that. I mean, if clear in space in order to do that with Watt, that just kind of seems like that there's going to be something different that we aren't necessarily used to seeing. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think Watt's deal. Do you guys think a Watt deal gets done though? Like Brian, do you agree that you think it does get done? It's not an issue. It's going to roll into the regular season.
I think it gets done. Yeah, because I don't see them going away from that whole plan of like once we kick off in that first game that they don't do contracts in the middle of the season. I really think it gets taken care of. If it doesn't get taken care of, I don't see him playing week 1.
Whoa. I don't know if shoot, Dave, what do you think? You think he would hold out?
No.
I don't think he would either.
Because he's there. I think it gets done. I think if they end up having to cave, the Steelers are going to have to pay him money and not get him for as many years as they want him. You know what I'm saying? That they might want him locked in longer than everything. But I think it'll be done. So
the sooner the better.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mike Tomlin said today, because they keep talking about Stephon Tuitt, everyone's assuming that he's working his way back from where he missed time, where he might not be as conditioned from where he had so much going on with the passing of his brother. Coach Tomlin specifically said today that I'm not saying anything about. He's like, I know. I'm trying to read exactly of where he's like, he doesn't have to report on it this time of year. So he's not going to say anything about it. So it's kind of like, does that mean there is also an injury that he's dealing with? My question is there a possibility where Stephon Tuitt ends up on the 53-man roster for one day and then it ends up on injured reserve to where he could then return after 3 weeks?
It's possible. No one knows, like you said, is he actually hurt or are they giving him time off? We obviously had the horrible story of his brother being killed with a hit and run down in Georgia. I mean, it's been traumatic. And when you piece together these, not just players, but also like Keith Butler interviews where he's talking about him, and Butler does not, he's pretty honest guy. He doesn't sound like he's too sure that it's guaranteed he'll be ready. I don't know, Brian, what do you think?
I think everything that you both are saying is warranted. I really think it has a lot of merit. Yeah, we don't know what's going on, but I like Dave the way he approached this whole thing and said that Mike Tomlin I don't have to talk about it. So yeah, that's a way that we look into things and everybody, if you've got any Yinzer in your blood, you're going to speculate. So, yeah. I mean, you go down some crazy roads too, but this isn't that crazy of a road. I actually think that this is something that I didn't even think of before. Now I'm going, oh no, maybe he's hurt.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you all this. Is going back to Watt for a second. There's a lot of people in the live chat right now on YouTube that are like, how much money would you pay him? To me, it comes down to one question and one question only. It's a yes or no question. I'll ask you both it. Do you think that TJ Watt is a generational talent? And when I say generational talent, meaning it comes around once in a generation. And the only player that I truly feel that I have seen that is a generational talent play for the Pittsburgh Steelers in my life has been Troy Polamalu. Brian, do you think that TJ Watt is a generational talent?
I thought Rod Woodson was too, actually.
Give me that.
But so I actually think he is, because I have let's throw this number out. I believe he has, if I'm not mistaken, I think he has 49 and a half sacks. Is that correct, Dave? And that's through 4 years. And 80.5 is the team record. That's James Debo Harrison's record. And on the route that he's going right now, he can go ahead. He can tie that record, or even break that in 3 seasons with the number of sacks that he racks up. I mean, surely the guy can get 32 sacks in 3 seasons the way he has been playing. So he could be the all-time sack master in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform like that. We have never seen anything like that. We have not had guys that get to the quarterback like this since the 70s. And those guys, I know they're giving them their sack numbers now, but I still don't know how accurate that is. They probably have more than that. Some sacks were probably lost in the whole abyss of not recording them until 1982. So I would definitely say TJ Watt is definitely a generational talent for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you regret letting a guy like this go.
Yes, and so Dave, I'll give you a chance to answer this in a second, but generational talents you do not let walk, no matter what. Like never. Like Rod Woodson, if that's that would be a perfect example of what not to do. What not to do.
Yes, you're exactly correct.
Do you think that TJ Watt is a generational talent?
It's funny because when you get through the NFL offseason and things like that, you can almost convince yourself of any ridiculous notion. And some people have, and I know there's even people saying we need to trade him. I mean, my own father told me they should trade him for draft picks. I'm like, yeah, that's the way the Steelers handle things. That's what they normally do. No, it's not. But I'm saying, you could try to make any argument you want, but I'm saying what really comes down to it, come on, think about the actual good data put in front of you. Yes, he's a generational talent. And Brian, I looked it up and Jeffrey confirmed in the live chat, it's 49.5 through his 4 seasons.
And he's only gotten better every single year. And he has an extra game this year if he plays. I think they get a deal done. But let's just leave it at that. You ready for some over-under? Oh, yes, a resounding yes.
Yay!
Yay!
And before you do that, can I just say that Jeffrey Benedict ratted us out to Michael Beck on the Slack channel?
I know. Yeah, I was reading and not listening to Jeff.
He's like, they're crushing you. I said, no, we're celebrating the glory of Michael Beck. Captain Blue check marks.
Yeah.
Come on. I know you're tag team partners.
Mr. And here's me caring.
Yeah.
Benedict just made the list, though.
You're on the list. All right. Let's do some over-under real quick on this preseason game coming up, the third preseason game for the Steelers. Over-under Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns. The line is set at a half of a touchdown. Brian, do you going over or under?
Oh, he's getting one.
Oh, very nice. Dave?
Yeah, I'll go over.
I'm going to go under. I don't think he throws one. All right, let's go with defensive sacks. This is game totals. I have the line set at 3.5. Brian, over under.
I'm going to do what I did last week and say under, and they get 3.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to. I like Brian's number of 3. I think I'll go with that one.
I'm going to go over with 4. Here's 2 about Najee Harris. Najee Harris rushing yards. I'm going to have the line set at 38. Brian, over, under.
I can see him getting slightly under with maybe about 30, 35.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
I'm going over. I'm going 44 yards on 8 carries.
Nice. I love that.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to go over with 40. And because I think he's going to play longer than we think. I think he'll play more than a quarter. Let's go with Najee Harris total yards, 51. So this is rushing and receiving. Brian, what do you think? Over, under?
You know what? I could actually see him breaking a pass. So let's go over. I can see him, taking a screen pass for a good 25 yards.
Okay, Dave?
He only needs 8 yards in receptions based on what I said, so I'm going over.
I'm going to go over as well, thinking that he gets a little bubble screen, or maybe they get him out in the flat and he makes someone miss. Dwayne Haskins touchdowns, 1.5. Over, under, Brian?
Under. I'm giving him 1.
Okay, Dave?
Under. I'm not sure that if he'll even get 1. I'm not sure how much time he's going to get in this game. I think they might save more time for him in the next one.
Well,
if four quarterbacks are playing, somebody's basically going to either get one drive or nothing.
Well, Dobbs is getting nothing.
Yeah. Well, if they don't give him anything this week, then I think they got to give it to him next week.
Yeah, of course.
So if Ben doesn't play the following week, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was only 2 quarterbacks this game and 2 quarterbacks the next game. Yeah, but I don't think they're doing it that way.
So you said under though, Dave?
Yeah, I said under.
I'm going to go over. I think he throws 2, and I think that it's just going to light Steelers Twitter on fire. Okay.
Well, that's what he has total so far.
I know. So. Mason Rudolph touchdowns, a half. Over, under, Ryan?
Under.
Oof. Dave?
No, I'm going over. I think this is the week that Rudolph gets one and Haskins doesn't. I know people are all about Haskins, and yet they don't like that Rudolph's had a higher PFF score in both games than Haskins. But it's just the way it works.
All right. Turnovers. Steelers turnovers. 1.5. Over under, Brian.
Under. They'll get just one.
Dave?
You said turnovers, not takeaways,
Correct.
right?
So offensive turnovers.
You said 1.5. I'm going under.
All right. I will go under as well. Takeaways, though. Defensive takeaways. 1.5 stays the line for this as well. Brian, over under.
Over. They're getting 2.
Nice. Dave?
Over, because they're better than the Lions.
They are better, but I'm going to take the under with 1 just because I feel like sometimes it's kind of the luck of the draw. And the last one, I don't know why this came to mind. I was thinking about this player, old Patty Freiermuth. Patty Freiermuth receptions set at 3.5. Over under. Just receptions, not touchdowns, not yards. 3.5, Brian.
3. I just don't see him getting too many balls thrown his way, but let's say 3.
So
Okay.
3.5?
3.5 is the line.
I'm going to go over because I think I would not be shocked if he gets a reception from 3 different quarterbacks.
That'd be pretty nice. I'm going to go over. I think he gets 4. So, all right, that's over under. Who has trivia? I know Dave does. Brian, do you have trivia tonight?
No, I do not tonight.
All right, Dave, go ahead.
My trivia might be pretty simple, but I'm going to do it. You guys probably know this, and it's okay if you do. But I just had to see for sure. Yesterday was technically the 20th birthday of one Heinz Field. It opened to its first event on August 18th, 2001. I'm going to ask Jeff first because Brian probably knows it. What was that first event at Heinz Field?
A Clark's concert.
Oh, bigger than that.
It was a concert. It was a concert.
It was a concert.
I'm going to say, I don't know, the Rolling Stones.
Brian knows it. So I have to say, to set up Brian to answer it, people said hello to Heinz Field by saying bye, 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 because it was.
Oh, it was insane.
Every little step I take.
It was
That's
in
horrible.
sync.
That was the very first event.
That's true. It was 1 week exactly before the first preseason game. Now, Brian was actually at the first whole regular season game at Heinz Field, which wasn't supposed to be.
No, by accident.
Because week 2 was postponed in 2001. Yeah. But the question is Brian's breaking up on us.
Yeah, he's back.
They had 2 home preseason games. Who was the first opponent in that preseason game, the first team that ever came in to play the Steelers at Heinz Field?
Brian knows, so I'm just going to take a stab in the dark. And I'm going to say the Philadelphia Eagles.
You say Philadelphia Eagles. Brian?
I'm going to say Motown, not Philly, not Motown Philly. Detroit Lions was the exact first game.
That would be correct. It was the Detroit Lions, just the only team in the preseason that the Steelers are facing this year, and the Steelers won that game 20-7.
There you go. Will that be the final score this Saturday? We shall see.
20
years later almost. That's pretty good. Good stuff. Is someone on this crew going to this game Saturday?
They are not.
Oh, okay.
Someone was supposed to go, but then some things changed. Someone on this crew is not going, but my niece and my sister-in-law are going.
Yay. Someone will be there.
That's awesome. See, that's good.
Yeah. Mrs. Big Brosco is who's going to be there.
All right. Awesome. All right. Let's do any final thoughts, Brian.
All right. Final thoughts is everything is progressing. Everything is feeling good. As each week passes, I feel so much better about this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I don't know whether I'm drinking black and gold Kool-Aid. I don't know if I've been hanging out with Martavis Bryant a little too much on those joint practices, if you know what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that really, I really love what's going on here. I just, the moves, Kevin Colbert is in it to win it like Iserman. He could drink about 15 Heinekens, wasn't born again.
Oh, my gosh.
But if I was,
someone take the mic away from
with
Kid
a little
Rock,
more
please.
love. And you know what? And Kid Rock, where's he from? Detroit. But with that being said, no, I'm really excited. I think this is going to be the best look at the Pittsburgh Steelers before week 1, and I'm really excited for this entire thing. I also want to throw in this as a programming note. Don't forget about the debut of what Ian's talking about tomorrow at noon. Don't forget about the Power Half Hour, and don't forget about Let's Ride, as well as every other single show that you are going to check out on the weekend. Really good stuff. We're out of our preseason. Our preseason's over. We are in BTSC podcast is in regular season form. We've got the entire lineup here. The next ones to come will be just stuff like pregame shows. That's what's coming up next, but we are ready to go.
All right, Dave, any final thoughts?
I'm excited to see, like I said, and I've said this on almost all my shows this week, that I don't expect it to be a full capacity stadium because it's the preseason, but I'm just excited to see the most fans in Heinz Field since Bryan and I were spooning there in December of 2019. That's going to be a welcome sight. I'm glad it's a home game when it's a nationally televised game on NFL Network, because you will get the Steelers announcers, because they do the announcers from the home team. So you will get to hear those everyone that's going to be watching on NFL Network. And when it comes to the Steelers overall, I just feel that since throughout the summer, I feel that this team has gotten better with the moves that they have made. And that's just really encouraging, because a lot of times you get to training camp, something bad happens, catastrophes happen in the first couple practices, if you know what I mean. The Steelers haven't had that, and they've been adding players through moves. So I feel like this team is even better now than what I thought it was going to be 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Hey, just so you're aware, like there are some times where these preseason games, they'll split it and they'll do one half like the Steelers broadcast and one half the Detroit.
Really?
I'm not sure if, they've done that in the past, because
I haven't seen that for a while.
Yeah, so don't be shocked if you get a half of Bob Pompiani and Charlie Batch and another half of who the heck knows is doing Detroit games. Booger McFarland now. I don't know. Okay, so Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
All right, that's it. We'll see you after the game on Saturday night for a post-game show. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.